Hey everyone, welcome back to Coach Hall Writes. If we haven't met yet, my name is Beth Hall. I go by Coach Hall on social media, and I am an AP Lang teacher from Arkansas. I recently attended my first in-person AP Lang reading in Tampa, and while I was there, I asked some of my fellow AP readers some tips that they had for new AP Lang teachers. And as expected, they had some great advice to share, so make sure you watch this whole video so you don't miss out on any tips. I'll include my tip for new AP Lang teachers at the end of the video, but I wanted to start with some advice from Katie Storms. Katie is an amazing AP Lang teacher, and she was actually an at-home reader this year, so she sent me a message with some of her best tips. She said, instead of teaching terms, focus heavily on rhetorical strategies and how those strategies are developed through the choices the author makes. Annotate pieces and work through those discussions as a whole class. Teaching the kids to analyze what is being said, how it's being said, and why it's being said. She also recommended that you shouldn't shy away from doing timed writes with your students, and I totally agree because this helps them prepare for the AP Lang exam. But she also pointed out that it's a really good idea to get them used to not only handwriting their essays, but also to really think about their handwriting and the quality of pen that they're using. These timed writes help give them experience writing under pressure, which is great practice for the exam. And her last tip was to make it fun. In her words, AP doesn't have to mean hard. Students just need to be challenged to think, not necessarily challenged to do more busy work. Thank you, Katie, so much for sharing those tips. It's great advice. Now let's hear from a few of the AP readers that I met up with in Tampa.
My name is Liz Haney. I teach in Minnesota, and I've been teaching APLAC that's what we call it, APLAC. I've been teaching it for about 15 years, and one thing that I always have to remind new teachers that come into our school and who teach it for the first time is that it feels new, but it's not new. If you have seen a commercial and asked yourself, who is that directed towards? Because you don't understand it, you're doing a rhetorical analysis. You've done this before. They're just putting words connected to the things that you know and are familiar with, and frankly, that you've done in classes before. So even if it sounds new, because there's terminology like exigence or like just the phrase rhetoric, you know this, and you have been doing it, and you do it all the time. So take comfort in that, and you're not a fish out of water. In fact, you're a fish in a brand new pool now.
I am Stephanie Kirk from Tennessee, and my biggest teacher tip would be to really focus on the line of reasoning, not just within just saying that we gotta have a line of reasoning, but really break it down to the individual paragraph level. So whatever system, Toolman, or whatever you're using for your paragraphs, that needs to be great. But a unifying line of reasoning can really help the essay overall.
Hi, I'm Oscar Goff from Alabama, and the number one tip I have, particularly when students are struggling with how to say something other than identifying devices and usually sometimes using the wrong names, is to actually do the essays yourself, or at least part of the essays, and work through how to write the paragraphs without having a device name to really help them see that.
Hi, my name is Tracy Fordham, and I'm from Florida. I've been teaching AP Lang for 11 years and teaching in general for 17 years. And some of the things that I see at the Read this year that I think are great to teach, especially if you're a brand new teacher, or really for any teacher, whether you're new or old, are to make sure that you go over some structure, essay structure, as far as where a rebuttal would go if they're going to offer a rebuttal, and then doing something a little better than my first example, my second example. It's really hard to kind of go in and score essays where it's one big long body paragraph, and we have to find the ideas that assertions that you're making and then supporting. So if you can create some kind of structure like that for us, it makes it very helpful. So teaching that is very, very helpful. Plus it's a canon of rhetoric, so it's a good thing to teach anyway. Syntax, some of the syntax is really noticeable when students insert very impactful sentences, like a 2 or 3 word sentence, not just as a hook, but somewhere within the body of their paragraphs to add impact and emphasis to the points that they want to make. I find that refreshing when I read that, because it's not done very often. I also find, and this is really important, that the best thesis statements are the ones that acknowledge, even if they don't have time to address counterclaim in their essay, but at least acknowledge the tension in the subject by starting with something like, although XYZ, and then stating their position, ABC, whatever that position is or assertion is, and ending with, and this is really important too, because. And the because is where you're extending that, why does this matter? It gives them lots to tether back to in their body paragraphs.
My name is Katherine Stone, and I'm a teacher from California, and my suggestion is to focus on the kids and their reading, thinking, and writing more than the test. Many years ago, someone shared with me the term mature academic perspective, and I have that as a poster on my wall to help remind me and the students that that's really what this is all about. It's not about passing a test or jumping through hoops. It's about learning how to read something from that mature academic perspective, think about it deeply and thoroughly, and then respond from an authentic perspective with depth and clarity. And that's really what I try to do as an AP line teacher, is to help them get to that point. And if I can do that, the test will come.
Hi, I'm Nate, I'm from Texas. Tip I would give to new AP teachers is to ask the people who have come before you. They have a dearth of knowledge that you can build off of. Don't expect that you have to do everything on your own. Just because it's advanced doesn't mean people expect you to take it all under your own wing. Work with the people around you. They're there to help you.
I'm Jeannie Pellegrino from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and my tip for teachers teaching argument would be make sure you tell them to have as much commentary as possible and then embed the example in there, and not just drop examples and then one sentence of commentary.
Hi, my name is Laurie Yegi, and I teach in Michigan. I've been teaching AP Lang for 12 years and teaching overall for 27. I've had the opportunity to read for all the different kinds of essays, but this particular time I want to talk about argument essay. I'm reading the Colin Powell prompt, and it has a common thing about why is a particular thing valid. And I want to address the idea of when you're writing your thesis statements, make sure that you answer the why, that why factor. Not just yes it is valid, but why is that factor valid? And give some hint and explanation of that. Use those reasons then in your body paragraphs to start. Don't just start with examples. We know the examples are coming, but start with that reasoning why, and then you can connect it back in your commentary throughout. Why does it matter? Just like you would do in a synthesis explanation. Also, just one final tip about the conclusions. Please, you don't really need to repeat everything that you've already said. The essays really aren't that long in a timed essay. But if you can say something impactful in that conclusion, it helps to wrap things up and shows new ideas. That would be a key tip to also consider. What can I pull from that sums everything up in a final conclusion, and also even the concluding statements for a paragraph. So, and one final thing, transitions within a paragraph. If you're making connections of two different types of examples, make sure that there's a reason for that. It might be a contrast, it might be, this is a small meaningful thing, but this is a larger, broader thing. Make that statement true, a reference in there, because we want you to understand, hey, this is a trivial thing and this is a big thing, and if you tell us, it shows that you've got that insight too. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kelly DeLaura from New Mexico, and I just wanted to share a quick teacher tip. What I wanted to say was, don't be afraid to let your kids see you struggle. Like, work through the prompt with them or work through the question with them and share your thinking, because that's the only way, in my opinion, that they're going to have an opportunity to sort of flesh out their own and understand that it's not just an automatic process, that it takes a lot of trial and error, even from, an educated person. So don't be afraid to do that. Don't be afraid to let your kids see you struggle. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Lindsey. Hi, I'm Andrea, and we both teach together in Texas. And we just wanted to encourage new AP English Language Arts teachers to try their best and focus on progress over perfection.
Yes, for you and for the kids. It's not always going to go perfect. Lesson plans will fail, and that is perfectly fine and happens to the best of us. So focus on just making every day a little bit better than the last. Good luck.
Hello, I'm Erika Johnson. I teach in Central Arkansas, and I've been teaching AP Lang for going on about 10 years now. And these are just a few tips, both as just a classroom teacher and as someone who's done the AP reading for 3 years now. My first one that I think is really important is to encourage your students to think critically about audience. And that sounds like a very rhetorical analysis tip, but it honestly also applies to the argument essay, and I would even say the question 1 essay, the synthesis. The reason for that is a lot of the essays I saw reading question 3, the argument, were not necessarily cognizant of the fact that they were writing for AP readers, and the ones that were cognizant of it, that were aware that this was going toward a teacher audience, I think tended to do better because they knew like how much they needed to potentially explain to their readership. So having your students, as they're working on these essays, really think about who is going to be reading this or who is this for, I think will do better if they take a few minutes to really think about that. Number 2 is to really emphasize that thesis statement and line of reasoning. Work with your students, because that was a big difference I saw in scoring, is the students who could craft a decent thesis and who could follow through on that thesis tended to score higher. And if you don't quite understand line of reasoning, there are a lot of resources out there that help with explaining that. So I would definitely check into those and really weave that into not just your argumentative essays, but also your rhetorical analysis, because line of reasoning is on that rubric as well. And then finally, my last tip for you is, even if you're a one-to-one school with technology, have your students handwrite things. One of the biggest struggles I think we as readers had this year was trying to decipher student handwriting. And I think a lot of that can be combated if you're having them write things in class on a regular basis. And it doesn't mean you have to grade all of those things. These can be one-off writings, these can be low-stakes writings, but that constant handwriting training will pay off and will help your students write, I think, better on that final exam. So regular writing in class, I think, is going to be a good strategy to use, and as a teacher, it's just something we should be doing anyway. So those are my tips.
So I want to give an extra special thank you to all those teachers who helped me create this video. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise. Before I give you my tip, I want to encourage you to check out the description box below, because there is a video link there that has a video of all kinds of tips for AP Lang students from AP Lang readers. So definitely check that out. You can share that video with your students, and as a teacher, you can learn something too. So shout out to Robert Bullock for creating those videos. Those links will be in the description. And now before we close, let me share with you my top tip for teachers. I've done a few different AP Lang teacher tip videos in the past. And so if you've watched those videos, this tip might be a repeat, but I do think it's my best advice. It's the advice that I give to new teachers in our district as they're learning honors, pre-AP or AP level work, but it applies to on-level classes too. That tip is to do short writing assignments, especially at the beginning of the year. When I first started teaching, I thought that I had to assign tons of essays, and I thought that I needed to spend a lot of time outside of my contract hours grading those essays. When I was assigning so many essays and trying to score them at home, I realized that I was making the same comments on the same papers. Now, don't get me wrong, there is a time and a place for essays, but it's helpful to build to those essays, because one of the things that I realized early on is that I was writing the same comments from one paragraph to the next on a student's paper, or from one paper to the next. And so even though I learned what my students needed to focus on, in some sense, I was wasting a lot of my own time and probably theirs too. This is where the short writing assignments come in. Throughout the year, I have my students practice writing defensible thesis statements. I also have them write paragraphs, not necessarily full essays all the time, but we work on body paragraphs. By correcting mistakes or common errors at the paragraph level, I'm able to be more intentional with my teaching, I'm able to grade things more quickly, and I'm still very in tune with what my students do and don't know, so it informs my instruction. So not only do I get to save time grading, but at the same time, these assignments are still meaningful for my students. If you like this kind of content, please give the video a thumbs up. Normally during the year, I post student-friendly tutorial videos, but I do try to make videos for teachers as well. And don't forget to check out the description box for those additional links. Until next time, happy teaching!